As a group, we had started to look at different film openings that were similar to our film genre, which was horror. We had also looked at some of their conventions, which is the elements of a certain genre. For example, we had looked at Paranormal Activity, Sixth Sense, and The Children. We had also looked at their convention and thought about how we could interpret them in our opening. For example, we had watched Sixth Sense opening and interpreted the low-key lighting of when the woman was in the basement. We had used low-key lighting in our opening because it helps create a scary and sinister atmosphere. Another example from Sixth Sense is when the woman is in the basement and there's only one light source. We had interpreted this lighting technique in our opening, but only using one light in the attic. What also helped with our film opening was doing it at night. This helped create shadows and make the film opening fit the conventions of horror. Another convention we interpreted in our opening was camera shots. We were influenced by Sixth Sense, Paranormal Activity, and Shawshank Redemption. We were influenced by Shawshank Redemption because our first idea was to do a little girl or boy being influenced by a bad spirit which would result them in hanging themselves. Another camera shot we had interpreted in our filming was a shot of the actor hanging himself and his feet dangling. We decided to use this camera shot because it was effective for the audience. It made the audience aware of what he had done to himself. Unfortunately, we were unable to do this film opening because we were unable to find a little girl or boy. Another reason why was because our film opening did not really match the conventions of horror. It wasn't as scary as we had planned it to be. 2 weeks before the deadline, we had come up with another idea, which was a girl come to the attic to look for something. While she was in the attic, certain events take place, which result her into running out of the attic. For example, the sound box in our movie goes off by itself, the rocking chair starts rocking by itself, and there's a shadow that goes by at the end. The shadow was a convention of horror, which we had interpreted in our film opening. We had also analysed sinister to help us use in our film opening. Unfortunately, there were not many things we could use in our film opening because firstly, we didn't have the correct equipment and simply because we were running out of time. From Sixth Sense, we had interpreted certain camera shots. For example, we had used a close-up of the actress's face to show her reaction when the sound box goes off. In Sixth Sense, the same camera shot was used to show the couple's reaction of when they see the window open and broken. Another camera shot we interpreted was when the woman is in the basement and was looking through the shelves. We had used this idea in our film opening when the actress is going upstairs and the camera is following her through the attic stairs. Sixth Sense had influenced our film opening a lot because it's similar to idea.
The main character is represented to be a normal, casual-looking teenage girl who just happens to be looking for a book in an attic. The character was wearing a leather jacket, a brown casual jumper, black leggings and black boots. We chose this as we were going for a typical teenage look for our film opening. We thought this would be suitable for our media product as teenagers are stereotyped to be quite lazy, rebellious and unmotivated. The costume was our way of putting these stereotypes of teenagers in our film opening, as the black leather jacket represented a rebellious teenager, and especially the colour scheme of the costume was mainly black, which doesn't bring that much colour to the character. This made the character look dull and mysterious instead. Another reason why we chose to be the character's age is because the target audience was teenagers as well, so they could relate to the situations they had before or horrible experiences they had in their life so far. We chose a girl to be our actress because women are stereotypically shown as being much more weaker and innocent than men, as they are more masculine. So making it a woman brings immediate thinking to the audience as they will know something bad is going to happen to her as she is by herself alone in an attic. Also, when she runs away, it's quite typical for women to run from something very scary and unexplained, as they are stereotyped to be powerless and inferior.
We chose Blumhouse Productions to co-produce our production because they're a multimedia production company that produce high-quality, micro-budget films for wide release. They've created a number of successful films over the last several years. We wanted our film to have a different feel to it when audiences hear that it's a Blumhouse production. They immediately think of Paranormal Activity, which was a huge success of theirs. We know Blumhouse Productions would produce something like The Unexplained because of the types of films that they have produced in the past, such as Sinister and Insidious. We chose Paramount Pictures to distribute our film because they're a huge production and distribution company. They produce a high level of quality films targeting an enormous target audience. They've created a number of successful films over the last several years. We wanted our film to have a different feel to it, and when audiences hear the Paramount Pictures are the distributors, they immediately think of high quality and the success of the film that they have made in the past. We know Paramount Pictures will be highly successful in the distribution of our film.
The age of our target audience is 15 and over. This is because our questionnaires are mainly filled in by 15 to 25-year-olds, and we feel that similar films we analysed are targeted at a similar age range. We feel that the idea and theme would fit the desired aspects that 15 to 25-year-olds want, since we also fall into the age group we know what they take interest in. We feel that our film will sell with both men and women due to the fact that our questionnaire results came back as men and women have equally high interests in horror films. This has further enhanced our and given us more of a reason to target this kind of audience. We targeted this audience as we received a high level of responses from our questionnaires. We created a questionnaire that consisted of 15 questions for people to answer. From our results, we were consistently able to identify our target audience. In particular, one of the questions was, "What is your favourite genre?" From this, we received a high level of response. From our male applicants, we found that 4 out of 7 chose their favourite genre as horror, and 10 out of 13 female participants chose horror. From this analysis, it is clear that the majority of 15 to 21-year-olds prefer horror films overall. This has further enhanced our idea of making a horror opening scene, as we know it will be popular with our age group, which is the target audience. Comedy came joint first with female audiences, but we feel this is unachievable with our opening idea.
I believe we attracted a target audience of 15 and over by the opening of our film, as we are in that audience range ourselves. We have knowledge of what attracts our group to a film through our own experiences. Our film opens with our character walking up the stairs to go to the attic, then going to a certain box in the corner of the room. This fitted perfectly in, as the audience feedback we got from surveys and from asking peers in our class was that in order for it to be scary, everything in the beginning cannot be explainable but mysterious. We thought we addressed this really well, as you do not exactly know what is chasing the girl who is scaring her. This attracts the audience, as they would want to continue to watch their film to get their answers to the questions they had before. From the survey that we took in the beginning for our research and planning really helped develop our ideas with a certain age group we were targeting. As our target audience is teenagers that are 15 and over, we asked them many questions like, what would you look for in a film and what was their favourite genre? These 2 questions helped us a lot when it came to coming up with an idea, as the majority of the teenagers chose horror and comedy as one of the genres they prefer the most. So we decided that we should base our film opening on horror. As we sat down as a group, we came up with a lot of different ideas, from someone hanging themselves, being haunted by a spiritual demon, or just being possessed. We did this by attracting the audience to our plot by making it clear, very simple, and straight to the point, and nothing complicated like the idea we had in the beginning, which was someone hanging themselves due to being haunted by a little kid from his past. As we decided to do a horror, we decided to stick with the typical conventions of a horror film, such as a very innocent character that was inferior, and also by using very low-key lighting, so everything seemed mysterious and dark. Also, when it comes to the audience, when they want to see a horror film, they expect to be scared, confused, and worried about what will happen next. We portrayed this by setting the film opening in an attic, as the room would be dark with not much light to fill up the whole room. This tended to be a very good effect, having dark and light areas around the attic, as it made the room look extremely daunting. Also, the fact that the light was bright when the character was going to the attic, when she was walking to the box, implies that she was vulnerable, as when she walks to the dark area, you straight away think that something bad is going to happen to her.
In order to make our film opening, the 2 main pieces of technology we had to use were my camera, a Nikon D3100 DSLR, and the program Final Cut Pro. These were both quite easy to use once you have spent some time with them. Since me and Deeka have already done GCSE media, we had some experience with using Final Cut Pro, although this was an updated version, so there were quite a few differences and improvements. After learning to use all the basics like the blade to cut, then moving footage around, editing became a lot easier and not as time-consuming as we had thought it would have been. One thing that took a while getting right was trying to have good continuity. In the final editing opening, we have many different angles of the same scene, and so cutting all of these shots and fitting them together so that it runs smoothly without jumping or overlapping was difficult, as we had to get it perfect. This took a few tries to get right and meant we had to zoom in very closely to cut the footage at exactly the right place, but other than that, the editing was fairly straightforward. So from this editing on Final Cut Pro, we have learned that it takes great precision to edit well. After finding a few sounds to add over the opening, we imported them and tried to fit them in the right place. Placing the sound with the action on the screen, we discovered it is also very important and has to be in exactly the right place to create effect. By playing around with the sound available to us, we also realised how important sound is to a horror, and by adding the right sound to certain scenes can make something that previously wasn't very scary, very sinister and fitting of the genre. Using the camera to film was all very simple, other than trying to film in darkness but avoiding grainy footage. Filming took a few times to get it right, as the first time it was grainy and the second time it was out of focus. We tried filming with strong lighting, but the scenes didn't seem to fit for a horror opening, even after editing the tint and colouring on Final Cut Pro. So instead we tried filming in the dark, which came out very grainy. So then we thought about adding enough light to avoid grainy footage, but not enough light to ruin the sinister atmosphere. We done this by having someone hold a light in the room or placing a light hidden so that the area in view is lit, but only enough to make the footage clear. This worked well and was a lot better than our previous footage. Another problem we had at the start of the filming process was getting the footage in focus. Although this seems simple, looking at the filmed footage on the small camera screen makes everything seem like it's in focus. However, after uploading it to the Max, we realised almost most of it was out of focus. So then we refilmed until we had it right. Also, it was quite difficult to get the foreground where the action would happen in focus if we wanted to film the character coming into the shot. And so for each shot we had to focus first with character in shot, then film with her starting out of the shot. We feel the preliminary tasks are very useful as a practice for the real project, and helpful to learn about what the filming and editing process would involve and what we would have to consider for the film opening. One of the most important things we had to learn about was continuity. In the preliminary task, one of the things we had to include was a match-on action shot. This meant fitting action footage together so that it plays smoothly without overlapping the action or jumping any of it. This was extremely useful as we learned how to film from different angles and film the whole scene numerous times in different angles so that we could fit all of the different shots together. We also had to take into consideration the actresses' every move and make sure they do exactly the same thing each time so that different things wouldn't happen in each angle, which would make editing very difficult. This was something we also had to use in our opening. There are many different angles of the action in our opening, so our actress had to remember what she did perfectly and redo it many times so that we could get it in lots of different shots. This is something that we hadn't really considered before doing the preliminary task, and so this was very useful. Another thing we learned along the process was about how vital detailed planning is. Since our idea changed so much throughout the process, each time we all made new storyboards to go with the new idea. This made it easier to remember all of the shots and angles so that when it came to filming it was a lot easier, and so we didn't waste much time. Also on the storyboard we wrote what sounds would go with each part, which made the editing process easier as it was already planned out. In the preliminary task there were certain rules we had to follow. These were the 180-degree rule, match on action, and shot reverse shot. This was good for learning about all the different things we would have to consider in making the film opening. However, because of the rules, we found there was much more freedom in the actual opening. This allowed us to come up with our own idea and have a lot more creativity in the project. This was good and meant that coming up with an actual idea we could be a lot more flexible. Although it wasn't always easy coming up with an idea that was actually achievable within our capability and still captivating to our audience. Overall, throughout the project we have learnt many things like the importance of planning, how to achieve good continuity, and to really have a clear idea of what we aim to achieve in our opening.